Hola. Mi nombre es Aldo y soy de México. My name is Aldo and I'm from Mexico. I'm very happy here to talk about something of my country. I'm a proud member of Global Insurance Law Connect, and we are Mexico, as you should know, is placed in North America, not in South America. Anyway, it has been a discussion if we are part of Central America or North America. And anyway, U.S. people, they don't know where are we, despite we are right below them. And they say that they are America. And it happened to be that America goes all the way from Argentina to Alaska. Anyway, we are in somewhere in the middle of Alaska and Argentina. And anyway, we are here. And Mexico is way much more than tequila, Speedy Gonzalez, and tacos. And when it comes to insurance, the insurance market, Mexico, it happens to be that Mexican insurance sector is one of the strongest of the world. And I will be trying to justify why I am saying this. First, you can't see the insurance market sector without seeing the 1993 crisis, where several insurance companies went into a broke because of a huge crisis we had there. And since 1993, the Mexican regulator, the Comisión Nacional de Seguros y Fianzas, they took they implemented several regulations since 1993 until now. And now Mexico is one of the strongest and the most stable insurance sectors in the whole world. Since 1993, then we have a very high level of stability in the insurance companies. And even though we have had, perhaps in almost 30 years, one or two insurers going to being broken, the rest of them, they are solvent. Anyway, in Mexico is easy to do business, and it is becoming easier to do business in Mexico along the years. The clicker up there. Okay, Mexican population is 129 million persons. You have a brochure where it says that we are 1.2 billion. We are not that much. We are just 100 and almost 30 million persons. The GDP growth in 2018, it was 2% of growth, and we are expecting to have perhaps none growth in 2019 because of the new administration. We have 110 registered insurers, including bond and surety. We have several filings being analyzed. We have Japanese, American, Chilean financial groups trying to set up in Mexico, and we expect to end the year with at least 5 new players in Mexico, which is a high percentage due to the reduced number of participants. The primes represent the 3.2% of insurance primes. Sorry, the insurance primes represent 3.2% of the GDP. That includes the Pemex's primes, which Pemex is the state-owned oil company. So Mexico has a very big opportunity to increase the percentage of the GDP. One fact that it is very important for Mexicans is that since 2015, Mexico has been diversifying the countries with which we have commercial relationships for obvious reasons. Mr. Trump doesn't like Mexico, and he has been trying to build a huge wall in between us, and that's why Mexico is focusing mainly in the European Union and Asia to diversify the commercial operations. So that's has been very good for Mexican exporters. Mexico is ranked nowadays as the 14th economy in the world. We are ranked as the 9th exporter in the world, and Mexico has been growing since 1999 at 1 digit per year. We unfortunately haven't reached the 2 digits of growing, and hopefully we will remain growing for the coming years. Mexico, we have investments in alternative energy such as eolic parks, and to take advantage of the solar energy. Despite that, the electric cars industry is growing. Mexico is now building new refineries so we can supply with national gasolines to the national cars. A very important thing is that now the new administration has this project to develop the railroad industry that has been abandoned at least for the last 100 years. The most important part of this is that today we are facing the hardest fight against corruption. Unfortunately, in Mexico, corruption has been a terrible thing that the former administrations couldn't eradicate at all, but instead of eradicating it, they fomented it. So the current administration, they are now showing true efforts to go against corruption. So that's very good for us. Anyway, corruption, at least for the last 30 years, didn't reach the insurance sector, meaning that the regulator, they were very straight on their way they act, and hopefully they will be still being as straight as they say they are. So our president has a real agenda against to fight corruption. In the insurance sector, Mexico is an open jurisdiction for foreign insurance carriers and reinsurers to develop insurance, reinsurance, surety, and bonding. Foreigners can incorporate in Mexico as direct stakeholders or as a branch of a financial institution if there are no restrictions on the percentage of foreign equity capital. That means what it says there, that anyone can go in Mexico to invest and to open an insurance company in Mexico, a reinsurance company, a surety, or a bond company. There are no percentage. There used to be a percentage back in the 1990s where a foreigner can hold up to 51% of the equity capital. Now that is open, and an insurance company can be fully owned by foreigners in Mexico. In Mexico, the law can be interpreted if Mexico must have or not commercial treaty with the country that it is willing to invest in Mexico. However, we have had incorporated some insurance companies with where the nationality of the stakeholders is not a country with that have a commercial trade with Mexico, and they are doing okay. Starting operations in Mexico as an insurance carrier, it would represent $6 million investment. Obtaining the license in Mexico can take six to 8 months. I mean, it can take longer, but if you file properly, it would take around 6 to 8 months. In Mexico, it's a federal license, meaning that if you get a license, you can sell all around Mexico. The license, thus, can be granted to sell life or property. You cannot have a license to sell both of them. You can have 2 licenses under the same corporation, but you have to have, if you want to sell life and property, you have to have 2 separate companies. Current administration is eager to ease the registration process to foreigners investors. Solvency II. Mexico led the whole American continent in the implementation of the Solvency II model. I can say, but I am really not very well informed about this, that Mexico implemented Solvency II before the European insurers carriers did. So we not just copied the Solvency II model, but we were like an experiment for the rest of the jurisdictions, and they are seeing now how Mexican market is working. We have implemented in Solvency II since 4 years now. Solvency II model is a very strict model. You should be aware of it. And that's why perhaps nowadays the Mexican insurance sector is so strong, because we have been complying with Solvency II almost for the 4th year. So the model of dynamic solvency has been run for the past 4 years. So you can grant that the Mexican insurers at least have solvency for the 5 coming years, at least. The Solvency II model is very hard when it comes to money laundering prevention. And perhaps that is one of the toughest of the financial system in Mexico. And that's why our model is being replicated in Latin America. In Mexico, we are now having corporate governance in all the insurance sector, meaning that we have very strict regulations within insurance companies, reinsurers, but it is oriented to insurance brokers too. So they are part of the money laundering prevention. And that's why the financial technical solvency is guaranteed for the insurers in Mexico. InsurTech. Mexico is exploring how to regulate new tendencies. We already have a fintech law, and there are some initiatives being tested in the sandbox. InsurTech came up with a very regulated law. I mean, it's a very regulated sector in Mexico, mainly because Mexico is part of international treaties going against the money laundering. So the fintech was a very attractive thing for the money launderers. So in Mexico, that's why it is a very highly regulated activity. So insurtech is now trying to be understood in Mexico on how can we implement it within the. I don't know yet if it's going to be within the fintech law or if it's going to be regulated within the insurance law. Mexican regulation is rigid. So, for example, in the life insurance, you have to the insured must sign the insurance requirement, and that is one of the things that the regulation is not allowing to go to present of this requisite. I mean, now some of insurers are using the biometrics to instead of the signature, but that's just the beginning of something. Property insurance is easier to sell it and to buy it through the internet, not live. What the regulator has said is that the regulation must respond to the market requirements. So we are now trying to find out who's brave enough to defy the regulator. The new tendencies in Mexico, the new administration is eager to bring financial services to the poorest people. Obviously, the financial services implies insurance. They are now trying to activate the loan industry in order for the poorest to be able to acquire proper homes, and that will imply, obviously, insurance. Today, 1 out of 4 Mexicans have at least one policy. That means that we have at least 91.5 Mexicans that will be targeted to be to sell insurance to them. The coming areas of opportunity, mainly life, health, and pensions. The surety is now new to the Mexican market, and the state sellers can now guarantee their obligations using this new contract. Credit insurance is an opportunity area too, because the credit insurance is being developed as an alternative to guarantee financial obligations. The liabilities, Mexico is now part of a forum compete. Obviously, our judges saw a lot of Hollywood movies, and they are now inspired by those movies to award the victims with large amount of money. Now we have punitive damages that have been recently created. I mean, we have been experiencing with punitive damages for only 4 to 5 years. So the punitive damages were created by the Supreme Court in order to act like as a protector of the consumer, because the Mexican consumer protection is rather limited and cannot find that way to the service or service providers or the good sellers. The punitive damages, they are awarded upon the judge's criterion. So the judge can take into consideration some facts like the wealth of who is responsible to causing damage, and I mean, it is not possible to determine how much the awarding will be granted. Courts are now awarding victims taking into consideration a fair indemnification inspired in human rights. Mexican Constitution have had human rights contemplated since it was published back in 1917. Now the human rights are considered in a constitutional level or above Constitution. So that's why it's very important. Opportunities are now the D&O coverages and political risks in Mexico. And in claims, since 2011, the Constitution was amended to incorporate human rights. And since 2011, the insurance is interpreted to favor insurance rights. Now defending an insurance company is very complex because the burden of proof has been reverted to the insurer in most of the cases. Claims can be delivered to Conducef, which is the Financial Consumer Board, and the Conducef will act mainly as a mediator between the insurer and the insured. And at least I do have instructions from my insurer clients that the Conducef is not an objective part of the mediation. So they will be always assessing the insured against the insured interest. The claims go to court, and it takes around 3 years from the starting to the end of the case, and it will be shorter in the near future, where we are migrating to an oral process of the law. Arbitration in Mexico, unfortunately, is not so popular when it comes to insurance and reinsurance, and liability cases are now very popular. And thank you very much. Muchas gracias.